Starting off at number 10, we have Christian Bale. Christian Bale is not an easy person to work with, so obviously he would be an absolute pain in the ass to work for. And after a leaked voice recording showed Bale screaming at his cast on a film, people finally understood how bonkers that he actually is. And his assistant Harrison Chung had such a bad experience working for him that he ended up writing a book about it. The assistant said that Bale would lecture fangirls about bothering him to the point where they started sobbing. And then another time when he received a fan letter, he told Chung the fan should be eliminated with a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain, which prevents any screaming. That was a quote, by the way, that's literally what he said. And apparently he didn't seem like he was joking either. And his stint working for the actor was so bad, he underwent 5 years of therapy for PTSD to get past the trauma that he put him through. And after hearing this, it makes a lot more sense that he regularly plays like, dark and twisted people. Might not be acting all that much. In at number 9, Kim Kardashian. After Kim fired her longtime assistant Stephanie Shepard, Stephanie spilled the tea on what we all want to know about working for Kim. At the time, she wrote on Instagram, "Letting go of a bad friend and self-care involves forgiving yourself for your impossible standards and knowing you are worth it." So yikes, clearly she is, talking about a certain somebody. One thing that Stephanie revealed is that Kim apparently takes 1,000 selfies a day. But also, who really is shocked? She also said she is so vain that she has a staff remove plants or objects if they're in the way of a mirror. While on holiday at Punta Mita in Mexico, Kim took 6,000 selfies on her 4-day trip. Kim is also apparently a slob. She would leave clothes everywhere and Stephanie would have to clean them up. Stephanie also said there would be old food in the refrigerator, the trash would be overflowing in the kitchen, and the bathrooms, no one would go in there. On the one hand, that's pretty gross, but Kim is a busy woman, so I can see why she would be kinda messy. That's definitely not the worst thing that she's done. In at number 8, Anna Wintour. After the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Anna Wintour is probably the first person that comes to mind when talking about people who treat their assistants terribly. And Wintour was exposed by her old assistant at Vogue, Lauren Weisberger. And her time there was so bad, she made a tell-all book about it, which was then turned into the movie that we all know and love, The Devil Wears Prada. The book and the movie portrayed the editor-in-chief as pretty much being the worst kind of boss, emotionally abusive, judgmental, and demanding. Anna actually wasn't too upset about the book or the movie, with her even saying in one interview that she's okay with anything that makes the fashion industry more entertaining and glamorous, basically meaning that she was behind the film. And even though the movie portrays her as having ridiculous demands, it also portrays her as a successful and powerful woman who knows how to get what she wants. And I'm sure Anna Wintour didn't have any problems with that depiction of her. In at number 7, Jessica Simpson. Jessica is another celebrity that's a total nightmare to work for. And over the years, she's gone through tons of personal assistants, which is never a good sign. And most of the assistants hated working for her. So after they quit, they spilled the tea on how terrible she is. One source told the Star that Jessica Simpson would dine and dash, as in she wouldn't pay the bill when she went to a restaurant. With one assistant adding that Jessica thought her stardom was payment enough. And even nastier, apparently Jessica wears a lot of hair extensions, but when she's done using them, she literally just drops them all over the place, with the assistant saying it literally looks like an animal is on the floor. And that one's pretty gross. Does she reuse those? Hopefully not. And at number 6, Courtney Love. Courtney Love is no stranger to controversy, which is clear from the scandal she's gotten into surrounding her late boyfriend, Kurt Cobain. And when it comes to assistants, she is just as bad. One of her old assistants actually sued her in 2012 for not paying her. And the payment that she was supposed to make was really weird, with her getting paid $30 an hour and a full scholarship to Yale. Apparently she was also not only an assistant, but also a forensic research aide, with her even having the opportunity to work on the Nirvana biopic. But the assistant claims that not only did Courtney not pay her, she also made her work overtime, didn't pay her or the scholarship, and even asked her to do illegal tasks like hiring a computer hacker and posing as a lawyer. Another bombshell was when the assistant said that Courtney Love acted with an improper and evil motive amounting to malice or despicable conduct. Not too sure what that's referring to, but it doesn't sound good. Halfway at number 5, Angelina Jolie. Honestly, having Angelina Jolie on this list is not a shocker, because she seems like someone who would have some pretty strange demands. One assistant of Angelina's named Anna worked at their country estate in the south of France between 2008 and 2010. And apparently she saw Angelina and Brad fight all the time, and they would spend weeks living apart from each other. She also even said that she thought that Angelina was an alcoholic, with the assistant even claiming that when Angelina got too drunk, she would lock her 6 kids into one room. Anna even sued Angelina and Brad for $88,000 for wrongful termination after she took time off for an illness. Not great, Angelina and Brad. And at number 4, Lady Gaga. A few former assistants have spoken out against their terrible time working for Lady Gaga, with one of her assistants, Jennifer O'Neill, claiming that she was an actual monster. And apparently Gaga owed her roughly $400,000 in unpaid overtime during the 13 months that she worked for her. Apparently Jennifer would do literally everything for Gaga and was on call 24 hours a day. The lawsuit states that her duties included ordering Gaga's meals, making sure her outfits were on hand, the promptness of a towel following a shower, and serving as a personal alarm clock. The assistant Gaga had before that also had a terrible experience, with the assistant claiming that Gaga slept and took showers with her because she didn't like being alone. Honestly, that's what would be the nightmare for me. Like, not the long hours, but the fact that I have to sleep and shower with my boss. Like, I just need my personal space too much for that. And at number 3, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' personal assistant had a darker experience with him, and based on his public persona, it's something people would never expect. Kimberly Stokes, a former assistant, worked as Tony Robbins' live-in personal assistant and even shared her thoughts in a BuzzFeed article about him. She recalls one time where he walked into her bathroom while she was showering and dropped his towel, exposing himself. This wasn't the only time Robbins made a pass at her either. To make matters worse, Stokes was a survivor of as a child, and Robbins knew that. Another former assistant named Kate said she considered seeing Robbins naked as a part of her job, but also saw his teachings as life transforming. And the fact that multiple people have made accusations against him proves that this is really just like a bigger issue for him altogether. And at number 2, J-Lo. This one is not a shock at all to me, because I've covered tons of times how J-Lo is one of the meanest people ever. Her demands are also the most degrading, with her insisting that her employees don't talk to her or even look at her. One of the job descriptions for her assistant was actually obtained, and it read, must have thick skin, be graceful under pressure, resourceful in foreign countries. They must be on call 24/7, be able to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. And if you're J-Lo's personal assistant, you have to know when it's J-Lo's snack time. Even though she won't actually say when she's hungry, like, you just are always expected to have food waiting and know when she wants to eat. And finally, number 1, Mariah Carey. Is anyone surprised that the biggest diva in the entire music industry is on this list? Because I am certainly not. The assistant named Liana was Mariah's assistant for 2 years, until she was wrongfully fired in 2017, which led her to sue Mariah. According to a lawsuit that she filed and a 32-page complaint, she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for both Mariah and her former manager. It seems that Mariah's former manager, Stella Stoppler, was a huge part of the problem, and she subjected the assistant to tons of abuse, like using racial slurs when talking about her. But there were also completely disgusting things that happened there too. And allegedly Mariah's manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. Liana's lawsuit alleges that Mariah knew about the abuse and was even present for a lot of it, but still allowed it to go on. After she complained, she was fired 1 month later. And this is just so insane and nasty, but also I really don't know why that assistant would want to stay working for someone that would do that to her, right? Like, instead of suing her for wrongful termination, she should probably sue her for like workplace harassment or something instead. Starting off at number 10, we have Lance Armstrong. Lance was exposed by his assistant right around the time that he was being exposed for doping, right after he was stripped of 7 Tour de France titles. His assistant decided it was a good time to come clean about everything, and the assistant, Mike Anderson, told Outside Magazine that Lance came back from Europe with cash stuffed into his pants, with the cash being from sleazy races that he did under the table. Also, Lance would apparently do everything possible to not be tested by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and that's why he got away with it for so many years. And apparently while he was at Livestrong events, which were events to support other cancer survivors, he would allegedly talk badly about the event and say things like, quote, "I hate these effing things." Ooh. Lastly, the assistant said he also left his wife in a very, quote, abrupt and cruel fashion, which doesn't say very good things about a person. In at number 9, Whitney Houston. The late singer's assistant Robin Crawford exposed Whitney's private life when she told the truth about her and Whitney's relationship. This was all done in the assistant's tell-all book when Crawford exposed that her and Whitney had a romantic relationship. According to the assistant, Whitney was a lesbian and everyone knew it. But again, this is just what the assistant said, not what we're saying is true. Whitney's mother, Chrissy Houston, was against their relationship, saying it was unnatural for two women to be that close. Even Whitney's husband at the time, Bobby Brown, did not like Robin Crawford, maybe because he felt that something more was going on. Crawford also said she was the first person to tell Whitney's mom about her drug use that ended up taking Whitney's life. In at number 8, David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff was well known back in the day as a classic heartthrob, known for his roles on The Young and the Restless and Baywatch. And he was even so popular that, fun fact, he actually used to hold the record for the most watched man on television, which is crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing. But it seems that his days of being a ladies' man are not over, and I don't blame him at all for that. You know, do your thing, Hasselhoff. But the issue here for the assistant is that one of his old assistants exposed that he actually makes the assistant go up to the women he's pursuing and ask them out for Hasselhoff. This is in the form of the assistant giving the women one of Hasselhoff's business cards, and I don't know if that would impress me. Like someone asking me out on behalf of someone. That could really go like two ways. I don't think I'd like it very much. I'd be like, what do you mean ask me out yourself, Hasselhoff? I don't know. And at number 7, Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande is known for many things, and one of them is the fact that she's been called a diva by fellow celebrities. One of her diva-esque traits is that she likes to be carried around after a long day of walking. And since she's so small, it's probably not a very difficult task for the right assistant, but it's definitely a strange one. And this rumor got so big that Ariana had to address it, and she ended up confirming it to be true. This was in the form of an Instagram post, where the caption was, quote, "Jones carrying me off stage. Post-show ritual when my feet are broken." She also joked about it some more with James Corden in a bit they did where James carried her to a Starbucks while she was ordering her drink. Of course, it was a grande drink. And at number 6, Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart is a very busy and meticulous woman, so obviously she's quite a handful for any assistant, but she knows it and doesn't really care, with Martha admitting in a blog post that she keeps her assistant incredibly busy, with organizing in particular. One task that her assistant had was organizing all of Martha's cosmetics into labeled clear plastic tubs in her basement dressing room. Martha explained it in detail in the blog post, explaining the assistant removes items from the bins and recategorizes every item, reevaluating what is still usable and throwing out expired items. And obviously that entire system seems like a total pain in the ass, especially if Martha makes her do that for all the rooms in the house. But also if you're an assistant for Martha, I mean, you better expect a lot of housework. Like that is one person, I would not be Martha Stewart's assistant because whatever I do would not be good enough. I swear, she can't even have it. I feel like she would have to be her own assistant. She's so meticulous about everything. Halfway number 5, Garth Brooks. Country singer Garth Brooks' former assistant, Lisa Sanderson, who worked for him for 20 years, not only exposed the star, but also sued him for close to $500,000. Saying in the suit that he was, quote, paranoid, angry, deceitful, and a vindictive man who will turn against those closest to him on a dime. Yikes, so clearly she's not very fond of him. Apparently the assistant also claimed that she tried to get him a career in TV and movies, but his demands were so insane that it never actually happened. With one example citing how he would refuse to work with anyone because he didn't want to share the limelight with other stars. Even saying that he refused a role in the massive movie Twister because he didn't want to be, outshined by the tornado. Brooks' lawyers of course denied these claims, but with accusations as insane as that, I don't know how that could be made up. Like, how can someone make up that he was afraid of being outshined by a tornado? That's gotta be true, right? And at number 4, Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro actually might be one of the worst cases of treating an assistant terribly, as there's proof of it happening. The actor was actually sued for $12 million for gender discrimination by his former assistant, Graham Chase Robinson. The assistant claims that De Niro made a and sexist comments to her, and even would initiate unwanted physical contact. And this treatment was not just allegations, there was actual proof of it on a recorded phone call. In one call, De Niro berated her for not answering, and the audio is shocking. The lawsuit also claimed that one of the reasons she was paid so little was because she was a woman, with De Niro telling her that she could get pregnant using sperm from a married male coworker. She also claimed that he would meet her only by wearing bathrobe or pajamas, and then asked her to scratch his back. So much wrong with all of that. And at number 3, David Beckham. This one is a case of an assistant exposing their employer cheating. But in this one, Beckham was allegedly cheating with the assistant. Back in 2004, the assistant, Rebecca Luz, said in an interview that she had an affair with David Beckham. Allegedly, the affair began with flirting and texting and gradually developed into a bond. But after a while, the relationship was purely physical, which made her feel dirty and cheap. Beckham vehemently denied the claims, and clearly Victoria Beckham didn't believe the claims, or they were able to work it through, as the couple is still together and happily married. And at number 2, Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock's personal life is pretty private, so it's hard to know what kind of boss that she would be. But based on accounts from her past assistants, she can be a bit of a nightmare. One strange request is that her assistant must always make sure the curtains in her home are kept closed at all times. Sandra's also known to have a pretty bad temper when things don't go her way, and unfortunately she takes that out on the assistant. According to one witness, while they were standing in line for a coffee, she berated her assistant for being 5 minutes late. And obviously, there's two sides to every story, but based on that, brief description, seems like a bit of an overreaction, if I do say so myself. And at number 1, Taryn Manning. Taryn Manning is another person who was absolutely awful to her assistant, and it was so bad it had to be handled in court. The former assistant Hillian Hartman reported that the actor was physical with her multiple times, and Manning was later ordered to stay away from the assistant after the two had a vicious brawl at the Dream Hotel in New York that left her assistant covered in bruises. According to a lawsuit that was filed, Manning choked and punched her personal assistant and whipped her with a wet towel. She also sprayed Windex in her eyes and mouth. And of course, after doing something like that, you're gonna feel the wrath of the law, as you should. And Manning was charged with misdemeanor assault and choking. Yeah, very, very rightfully so. That is, like, what? I don't even know how a person could do that to another person. I don't understand celebrities. And at number 10, Tana Mongeau. Anyone who's a fan of Tana Mongeau probably knows who her ex-manager Jordan Morona is, because Tana decided to make Jordan a part of her content from the very beginning. However, this took a turn for the worst in Tana's reality show with MTV called Tana Uncensored. During the second season of the show, Tana was constantly fighting with her manager. There was even an entire episode of the show where Tana decided to launch a perfume on the same day as her friend's nose surgery, against the advice of her manager. And she ended up missing both events, leaving her manager scrambling to figure out if they were going to be launching or not. The entire show made her look like an unprofessional brat, and her own fans even turned on her because of how she was treating her manager. Tana and her manager ended up briefly reconciling, but now Tana is signed with a different manager. And at number 9, Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber is famously managed by Scooter Braun, who has become the it guy in Hollywood for managing talent. Braun started managing Justin when Justin was only a preteen, so Scooter knows a lot about him. Scooter has opened up on a few occasions about Justin's dark past and has exposed how close to death that Justin actually was during his substance struggles. During one interview, Scooter said, quote, "I thought he was going to sleep one night and that he would have so much crap in his system that he would not wake up the next morning." Apparently, Braun's manipulation of Justin is what might have actually saved him. Braun told BuzzFeed News in April of 2019, quote, "Justin, when he got healthy, he was like, man, there were times where you were manipulating me that made me really upset. But now I realize that you were only doing it to help me." Hopefully that was actually the case. And at number 8, Ariana Grande. Scooter also manages massive pop star Ariana Grande and has exposed a few things about her past, mainly how her relationships have affected her career. Ariana actually dropped him as a manager in 2016 for a brief time. During that separation, Braun said that his team was so mad at her that his team didn't want him to ever speak to her again, but he decided to be cordial instead. Years later, he said about their time apart, quote, "When the boyfriends leave, she starts to see the light on some stuff." So he basically blamed it on her boyfriend at the time. Years later, after the Manchester bombing, he also said that Ariana was reluctant to ever perform after that, but he ended up pushing her to the Manchester benefit concert. And at number 7, Cheryl Cole. Cheryl Cole was the host on the UK version of The X Factor for many years. However, Cheryl was fired from the US version of the show by Simon Cowell, and years after he exposed why. Apparently, following her divorce from Ashley Cole, she was not the same person. Cowell said that Cole had lost her confidence after the divorce. Apparently there were some issues when Cheryl showed up to film the first day in a crazy outfit with purple pants and an orange top. When asked about the outfit, Cowell said, quote, "When I saw her, I didn't recognize her. Literally, the hair and outfit were crazy, just totally crazy." Adding, quote, "The only way I can describe it is that it wasn't Cheryl sitting in the seat. She'd lost her confidence." However, he says that firing her was a big mistake, and there was just something not right about the American version of the show. She did return to host the UK version of the show, and they are now on very good terms. And at number 6, The Wanted. The Wanted was a one-hit wonder that found brief success from their song Glad You Came. At the time, they were managed by Scooter Braun, but he was not able to sustain their 15 minutes of fame. Following the band's 2014 split, former member Siva alleged to The Mirror that the band split mainly because of their reality show, The Wanted Life. And apparently Scooter Braun encouraged the band to host and attend parties constantly. Nathan Skies was even in an alleged fake relationship with Ariana Grande at one point. However, Braun blamed the failure on the band's hot temper. That got them into feuds with huge stars like One Direction and Christina Aguilera. Halfway at number 5, Ozzy Osbourne. Sharon Osbourne and Ozzy Osbourne are well known as a Hollywood power couple. Sharon even started managing him after his split from Black Sabbath and managed him for many years after. But of course, the two are married, which can complicate things. Ozzy has been open in the past about his substance addictions. However, he was forced to tell the truth about his sex addiction because Sharon forced it out of him. Before the couple briefly split in 2016 because of his cheating, Sharon exposed the truth when she admitted to treating him with sleeping pills so he would tell her about the cheating. She claimed that she wanted answers about the cheating, so she gave him 2 extra sleeping pills, and he apparently told it all. However, the two did eventually get back together. And at number 4, Kourtney Kardashian. Kris Jenner is the most famous momager out there, as she manages the career of all of her children, making 2 billionaires out of her family members. And even though it's a mutually beneficial relationship most of the time, sometimes she admits her family wants to fire her. Most likely to fire the momager is Kourtney. Kris told Wall Street Journal magazine's The One, quote, "Kourtney probably 3 or 4 times, and that's just a day." And honestly, I'm not shocked by that at all. When speaking more about what it's like to work for her kids, Kris said, quote, "I feel like a fireman because I'm always putting out fires all day, every day on some levels. I think I'm good because they're my kids, and I think I'm qualified for so many different life reasons." And at number 3, Sean Combs. Sean Combs, known by his stage names Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and Just Diddy, got a terrible reputation once he started managing talent in the industry, and that talent exposed him years later in droves. One of these singers was Aubrey O'Day, who first came to know Diddy through his reality TV show, Making the Band, where O'Day was put into girl group Danity Kane. The group did not take off, and it seemed that Diddy took his frustration out on the women. O'Day said about Diddy, quote, "Diddy's a father, so hopefully he's learned things about the way that you handle women and has some compassion for women now." Adding, quote, "There was just no room for error. Diddy was one of the most intense people you could ever work with. I experienced everything from race remarks to sexism, and a lot of it was scary." And she's not even close to the only person that has spoken out against Diddy. And at number 2, Victoria Beckham. Victoria Beckham's former Spice Girls manager, Simon Fuller, recently exposed that while she was with the Spice Girls, she was not happy or comfortable. Speaking at the Business Innovation Awards, Fuller admitted that Victoria was never happy as a part of the group, even while they were pretty successful. He said, quote, "She could sing pretty well, she could dance pretty well, but she always felt uncomfortable." Adding, quote, "When the Spice Girls broke up, she had a few songs as a solo artist, but she wasn't happy, and she said to me, 'Simon, I just don't want to do this music anymore. What do you think I should do?' And apparently he told her that she should go into fashion. That's where she's been since and is apparently much happier now." And finally, number 1, Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer was exposed for sending inappropriate and potentially illegal messages over Instagram DMs. In these messages, he also expressed fetishes that disturbed a lot of people. After the first string of DMs and allegations came out against Armie, his agency, WME, decided to drop him from the agency. His publicist also decided to drop him as well. When news of this came out, many people believed his agent and publicist knew more than we did, and that there were even worse allegations that would be coming out soon. This made public sentiment about Armie plummet even further. And then weeks later, more did actually come out against him. And now he's being investigated by the LAPD and has been cut from any future acting work.